And yes, I am recording this. Thanks for the reminder. I just hit record, Krista. Thank you. So Jane, if you could, can you hear me now, Jane? Is Jane still with us? Sister Jane, are you on the phone? Are you on the deal? You're muted, Jane. Hang on here. I'm going to text her again. So again, Jane was out in the Midwest. There she goes. Is that Jane?
Yeah, okay, you hear me now?
We hear you perfectly. So did you get my question?
Can you hear me?
I can. I'm going to ask the question again because I hit record after I asked the original one.
I
So
did,
if you
yeah,
could, yeah, walk us through from the beginning when you first heard the term drive growth,
okay.
what happened and what was it like? It's all yours.
We heard rumors of it starting in May, and it came to fruition and actually started beginning of July. I was brought in by the zone manager, and I don't think he was sure what role I was going to fill, but he knew he wanted me there. And so we launched late July with 6 dealerships, and we were rocking and rolling. And the very first meeting was very overwhelming. We actually had 2 more reports than we have now. So the first meetings were running at least 4 hours. You know, when I heard initially that we were going to keep a dealer for 4 hours, I thought, no way. But they became so engrossed and so engaged that they were just eating it up, eating this new information and the new lens kind of theory or look at their business that they had not seen before. So my role quickly became just the note taker and the action item grabber. And it started out fast and furious. You know, we didn't stop and somebody didn't say, capture this action item. You know, so as soon as I heard them discussing something, or as soon as a point came up on the PowerPoint, then I was capturing it on the board. And with every meeting, by the time we left, we had at least 15, roughly 10 to 15 action items to start with. So it became very intense right from the beginning. The meetings were scheduled every month, and every month was 3 or 4 hours. We had a lot of visitors from Detroit, and then always Randy Brandy Berlin, just drew blank on his name. Randy Berlin was with us at every meeting presenting the information, and the DSM, the zone manager, and myself were basically just listening while he presented it to the store. And of course, he was the one that was answering their questions because this was all new to us. But it became very evident right from the beginning that this could have a huge impact if they really grasped it, if they engaged with it, and if they worked it. And we are still working with those stores today, and we're still seeing growth. We just had a meeting last week, which was really exciting, because they were up to 97.6% on their drive growth effectiveness. And originally when they started out, they were at about 83%. So that was approximately roughly a 14-month start, 14-month, into it. And you might say, well, that's a big deal. Actually it was 13 months, but to get that kind of growth that fast for a dealership is virtually, I think, unheard of, unless they would make some significant changes. So it became immediately, evident that this was something that was going to have a lasting impact and really impact GM. And the rumors started swirling in October that this was rolling out nationwide. So we were kind of starting to put together strategies and roll out, what training would look like, what we would do, and things like that.
So what early on, Jane, your personal feeling, like when you were approaching this, how were you feeling personally in terms of understanding and comprehending how dynamic a process this was? Were you intimidated? Were you comfortable? How would you describe the way you were feeling
Hearing
and
a lot of
grasping
new
it? Go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, well, initially, I mean, it was a lot of stuff that I had never heard. I had never been exposed to. It was a lot of stuff that I had never heard, that I had never been exposed to before. Terms like RSI or ROS. I mean, I knew them, but I wasn't as obviously ingrained or is engaged with the dealerships and talking about that stuff. That just wasn't our job at the time. And so it was very overwhelming, and and it was like the first meeting, my head was spinning, but you started to get into a cadence by about probably the seventh or eighth meeting. And I started to get a handle on it and say, okay, now I'm kind of getting this. Now I know what's kind of driving XYZ and what needs to happen and things like that. So, but it took a good, probably 2 to 3 months to feel semi-comfortable with it.
One thing that we've been doing fire drills all week. On my team personally, we have 5 new individuals and a couple of fairly new, plus a lot of experienced folks. We all need the same level of help. And I was using an analogy today that the meeting is constructed by an intro. Yes, I'm still echoing. Okay, sorry about that. I'll try to be brief. It's almost like a football game. There's a first half and a second half, with the first half being the operational analysis, that S4, and the second half the traffic conversion analysis. Early on, how was there an imbalance on your involvement, your input, more so to a TSA versus operational, or how would you describe that balance on your engagement in terms of asking questions and those kinds of things?
I got to tell you, for the first 3 or 4 months, I probably wasn't doing a whole lot other than taking notes. Because it was, again, it was just so new, and obviously with all the GM head people there too, I wasn't gonna, ask a stupid question for myself. But, and additionally, we had 4 more reports. So we had a digital report, and then we had another report called a summary that summarized the whole business within a 10-mile radius, which I really loved. So we were going through 4 reports, at a time instead of just 2. So, I didn't really take an active role probably till about maybe October, November, December, and then started making suggestions, seeing how the pieces fit together. But it became more of asking questions, like the if-then process. If you saw that they had service leads coming into their numbers, from a service appointment and sales coming from there, then what was the SDSV process? But the DSM and Brian were really good about, asking those questions too. But if they missed something, then I would chime in and ask. So we were a really good tag team, the 3 of us, whoever the DSM was at the time, and Brian and myself.
So what were some of the more common action items you got early on? I remember you telling us this in the flea a while back. What do you recall as some of the more common early action items?
Well, just so everyone knows, they're actually posted on Community. So if you go into Drive Growth, I made a document there that you can look at. And so I broke it up into categories. So you have your CRM action items, sales action items, digital action items, things like that. So you can kind of take a look at them there, but very quick, it became evident that we were pretty much repeating a lot of them, and a lot of it revolved around the work that we had already started, with our people, knowing this was coming now around the CRM, getting better leads, cleaning up their buckets. We didn't have the advantage of that back in July of 2017. So in essence, we got off to a really slow start, whereas these star stores have kind of been prepped, hopefully, and ready for it to come, and done some of the preliminary work up front first. But again, I'll drive you back to Community, because I believe the action items are still listed there and posted, so somebody could go in and look at those, and that would be a good starter for you to print out and take with you to your meetings.
That was an intentional shameless self-promotion for Community, but I appreciate you saying that, Jane. Another thing, did you find early on, or even up now,
so
when you have the group meeting and you sit around, you go through the data, you identify the action items, do you at times loop back kind of on your own with, keeping your GM reps informed? Do you come back on your own and work with the dealer one-on-one on strategies to accomplish the action items?
Yeah, it depends what it is. You know, if it's a sales action item or an inventory action item, something like that, then obviously the DSM is driving it. But, you know, the after we have the meeting, usually the day after, I recap the action items and everyone knows who's playing what part. You know, if it's my action item that I'm going to work with on the store and it involves something with the BDC, or perhaps they want me to look at their CRM buckets or whatever, then my name's on that action item. So when we leave, we have a clear defined strategy and a clear defined roadmap as to who's doing what within the next 30, 60 days, or however frequently now you're going to have your meetings. In our case, we were having them every month. We've now switched with the stores that were in the pilot to keep them rolling. We've switched to an every other month cadence. And the DSM will import my action items, the action items that I send, into the PowerPoint. And that's the first thing we start with at every meeting, if it's a pilot store.
That's awesome.
But obviously we'll do the same cadence with the new stores rolling out too. You know, they'll see their action items and, you know, we'll know what we still have to accomplish, what we're still working on, what are ongoing things that we're taking a look at, kind of refreshing and keeping that in front of everybody going forward.
Pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Hey, how's the echo now? Anybody give me a chat line? I think I figured out what's going on with this after all this time. Am I still echoing? Krista, help me out here, sister. You're my echo person. Am I echoing? Okay, maybe not. Maybe you don't hear me. Okay. So one other one, and then I'm going to open it up to the floor. So a fascinating piece to me. I'm still echoing. Damn it. I mean, darn it. So service. I think it's unique to Vin Solutions. The service leads, and then the number that are buying at the dealership, competing Chevy or Buick GMC dealers, and then of course the competition. Boy, we all work so hard on vehicle exchange processes, but what's been your experience, Jane, throughout this as far as success stories and getting use of these equity mining tools and getting the vehicle exchange process in play? Do you have any stories about that?
You know what, Kevin, you were breaking up so bad. I wasn't hearing your question. Let me paraphrase it back to you and see if I got what you said.
Yeah, sorry.
You wanted to know what the experience was with the service appointments importing into the CRM.
That is correct. That's correct. Sorry about that.
Is
I don't
that
know
it?
what's going on here. Yeah. So
Okay.
can you hear me?
So,
Can you feel echoey, right? Yeah. With the Vin Solutions in particular has that electronic feed. How have you been doing with that?
Yeah. So here's what we found, and this is new to us too. For some reason, when we were in the pilot program, all of our information from the CRM was kind of being hand pulled and hand imported into the Drive Growth model or whatever at Urban Science. So we didn't see this. We did see it all last week with anyone who had Vin Solutions. So obviously the service appointments are being imported into the CRM. The other thing we saw was that it wasn't picking up showroom leads. There's some issues with Vin Solutions that Urban Science confirmed after our meeting last week, just so you know, as an FYI. I got a hold of Randy Berlin and said something's wrong. We're not seeing showroom leads like we did. We're not seeing GM third-party leads. So just so you know, they're working on it. That was his answer back to me on his end. So they are working on it. But they do import the service leads. So that can give you some funky readings, because if you go into, as you're in the model report on the TSA, you'll not only perhaps start seeing GMs, but you'll see Fords, Toyotas, Dodges, whatever else people bring into the service department. Because it's importing into the CRM, it shows up as a lead, even if it's a 1997 Dodge, the way Vin is working it. So unfortunately, you see that model later down. If you go into the model part of the TCA, you'll also see if that customer who had that 1997 Dodge that came in for service did something with a car, purchased a car, which threw me for a loop, you know. So we saw that somebody with their 1997 Dodge who came in, and I don't know if it was 97, I'm just saying that, but we saw that they actually purchased a competitive car from another OEM. And so Randy indicated to me that that customer, because his name was in the system, they were able to physically match him then to a new car sale at whatever OEM he purchased at. So that's why that shows up. So VIN has some funky things to it that, like I said, is new to me and new to all of the people who are on the pilot, because everything on our end had hand fed into the system. But just know that they are working on it.
Okay. Hey, I said last question, but there's one more I meant to ask. GM third-party lead program. Obviously, I think the customers, as I understand it, they can select up to 3, for instance, Chevrolet dealers or Buick GMC dealers. We see a lot of leakage on that. We're losing a lot to competitive other OEMs and competitive OEMs. What has been your experience in working through the opportunities with the GM third-party lead program?
GM third-party leads are, you know, and this is for the newer people, because I think we've beat this to death with a dead horse for the older people, but they are good leads. They're great leads. Those people are buying, you know, and they're buying frequently, but farther down or farther up in the buying funnel. So we haven't had any magic formula, magic bullet to capture them and bring them in, and that's been a tough lesson the last 6 months. You know, we don't know if it's process, we don't know if it's an offer, we don't know if perhaps we're not just giving them the right information, and we've explored lots of things. But this was even surprising to Urban Science when they discovered and saw NGM, when they saw the amount of people who are putting in a third-party lead for a GM product to 3 dealers, but then in the end effectively end up buying at a competitive OEM. Or perhaps another GM dealer, but a very high amount are going to other OEMs. So that's something that they're taking a look at too. I don't know if we'll ever get any more information from that, but with that, you have to keep working them, and you have to keep working them religiously. The couple things we saw is that we were terrible, and we being the dealership that we were in at that time, they were absolutely horrible at following those leads past 5 days, usually 4 or 5 days. And you'll be able to see that in your TCA report. When you filter down just to GM leads, you can see how far they're following them. And in most cases, it wasn't much past 4 or 5 days. And again, part of it is a re-education process for the dealership and for the salespeople, because again, they're short-sighted, or you know, they live day to day and only in the first 4 days. So because of that, if they're not buying within the first 4 or 5 days, then of course they move on to the next customer. And the GM third-party people are kind of out of sight, out of mind. So you have to do something to reinvigorate it and to keep them rolling. I would suggest following them at least 30 to 60 days. I know a lot of people like to go out 90 days. We didn't see a whole lot of great buying, amounts past that 60 to 90 day window. And for most BDCs, it's a task to really add another 30 days onto their follow-up process. If they're a full-fledged BDC and they have, leads continually rolling in, then it really puts a strain on them. But if at all possible, somebody should be following them for 60 days. And that becomes a great opportunity. I loved what Dave Karasik's zone manager did in Greensboro, and I sent that up to my zone manager, about re-pulling those leads and reactivating them. Of course, he was talking about all leads, but a GM third-party lead would be a really good one to re-pull and to go after, now with the different incentives and it being a cleaner, simpler program, things like that. So, some things we tried, we tried a $50 gift card to bring the customer in, and within a 90-day period, they had 3 people who took advantage of it. We tried dedicating those leads to one person who could continually follow them, and that seemed to work a little bit better. But all I can tell you is there isn't any magic formula. And there is quite a bit of information, I think, again, on community about GM third-party leads with pictures and how many days out to follow and general information. But you are right, Kevin. They can submit their lead to up to 3 people, and the dealer's paying $17 for those leads, for each lead.
And
so it's a good thing to look at.
When they get the lead. Sharon just chimed in. What I'm going to do, if everybody could, I've done this with my zone when I was a BDM, and sometimes it led to disaster. If everybody could mute their phone, okay, and then what I'm going to do is unmute everybody. If you've got a question, just unmute, individually unmute your phone. So here we go. I'm going to give it a shot. Let's see what happens. Everybody is unmuted, I believe, as we speak. If you have a question, fire away for Jane. Anyone? Bueller. Sharon, you want to share that story?
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Kevin, real quickly, this is Alan. Even though dealers our customers have an option of 3 dealers, on average, they are averaging, I believe it's 2.1. So, I mean, because you'll hear dealers say, oh, yeah, they're third-party leads, but they go to everybody and their brother. Really, if they can't compete with just one other dealer, because that's essentially what's happening, then they shouldn't be in the business. So, just some FYI.
Good piece of data. Good piece of data. So, Sharon Cowdery from the great state of Tennessee. Knoxville had 6 to 7 by last weekend as a result of sending out what Dave Cape had posted. They did a blast, and customers started coming in, started calling. So that's cool. Other questions for Jane? Any thoughts, questions? Don't be shy. It's a great opportunity. Okay. Anyone? Bueller? Anybody? Everybody's shy out there? Very good. Well, Jane, it's been awesome. I appreciate it. I know you're a busy lady. I'm not sure if I'm still echoing like a madman or not, but I apologize for that. It has been recorded, and Jane came in loud and clear, so we should be fine right there. It's a great program. I got to tell you, I'll throw this one more out at you, Jane. So as I'm going through this, I'm learning with my teammates. We're opening up the data, we're going through it. And I came up with a thought. I said, hypothetically, and I'm not trying to shortchange or go cliff notes on this, but if a dealer, put a gun to my head and said, you only get 15 minutes and you can only go through 1 page of the reports. I thought it was an interesting comment. I think somebody asked me that. We decided that in the TCA report, the sources page, and again, this is an opinion, but I feel like I could have a very robust discussion and come up with several very meaningful action items just off of that page. Again, not that we should shortchange it. There's so much other valuable information. How does that strike you when I say that, Jane? Am I insane, or what do you think? Well, she knows I'm insane.
As long as you aren't working with VIN right now. Yeah, because VIN is so, like I said, because VIN is so funky and the information that's coming through VIN. So as long as you aren't working with VIN right now, you'd probably be okay. My thought, though, is to the greater good for what GM's paying for this. You're not worthy of it and you don't deserve it. So work through it yourself.
That's pretty good. I like it. That's really
if you're not going to give me any more if you're not going to give me any more time, then figure it out yourself. So I think it's just so important to their business. We have not seen it not work in the 6 stores that I had, and there were other pilot stores too that started jumping on board when they heard what was happening in Cleveland, but they didn't have the full 6 months. And so it really is. It's just too good, and it's too special of a tool right now that we only have for a year. And if you're not willing to commit 2 to 3 hours of your time, within a year to help grow your business, then I would just move on.
Hey, Jane.
Yeah.
This is Steve Colbert. I've got a question for you. As Randy Berlin and Bob Taylor have all kind of encouraged us. You gotta take the time and go through the whole report, and that's two reports really. It's the navigation report and the TCA report. What kind of link back conversations do you have? If you go through the operational report first and then you dig into the TCA, are you bouncing back and forth at all? And what do those conversations look like as you bounce between the reports to kind of check data here versus checking the data in the other report?
Yeah, you bounce back and forth a little bit, especially if for instance, like when you're in the TCA and if you're looking at the individual models and you see that they lost significant models to other dealers, it kind of sometimes helps to go back to the Navigate, the S4 Navigate, where it shows the models at the very bottom and who they're competing with within their space, like where an Equinox would fall against a CRV and a Toyota RAV and things like that. So once in a while we might bounce back there. I'm trying to think of something else, Steve, a time that we would bounce back.
Jane, one of the other things that you shared with me many moons ago was the idea that sometimes the inventory question is one that the district manager might not want to address, yet you've always felt that it's important to get that off the table, to have that conversation, dig into the S4 Navigate, and to I guess counter to Kevin's question, don't start with the sources report. Dig into that inventory issue, face it up front, and then move past it. Don't let it become the whole meeting. But is that important to you, to make sure you kind of get that inventory, the S4 Navigate piece, talked about first?
I think it is, because there's so much in the S4 that, I said this one's in front of Brian and he corrected me, but in my estimation, there's quite a few things in the S4 that sometimes they can't control. I mean, if they can't get Equinoxes, they can't get Equinoxes, unless they're willing to go out and purchase them, which that's a hard pill for a lot of dealerships to swallow, which is another reason why I'll give a plug for Drew's sheet, that I like Drew's sheet so much, about 11 things that they can do to themselves to help drive their inventory. But yeah, because to me, that's a lot of issues. And we had it was really good at the dealership that we were in a few weeks ago with Danny Vanderijs, who's just so good. We had a dealership who was very close to being actually 100% effective. I was surprised he was that close. And the only thing he was short on was trucks. And he was, started moaning and groaning about not getting trucks. And Danny had pulled up his consensus where they had passed on extra trucks, for 3 months in a row. So, he had nothing to say then, kind of shut him down. And he was only short 12 units, and he was passing on 5 extra trucks a month. So, it was just simple math. If he would have taken those 5 trucks for the last 3 months, he probably would have been 100% or over, on effectiveness. So those kind of conversations you have, but I like the TCA, because then you move into the TCA and that's all their stuff. That's all within their control of how they're managing their people, how they're managing their processes, how they're managing their CRMs, that's their marketing, that's all within their control. So that's why I really like to do the S4, well, and it's not me, I mean, that's just the way Randy always did it. So I had a tendency to always, I'll have a tendency to always follow his model. He did the S4 first and then ended up with the TCA.
Yeah, I think that's the conventional wisdom out there. And yeah, I was just, obviously that one page is not something we're advocating, but just one of many valuable pages. Hey, we have started officially a Jane Butoric fan club. We have a new president. Her name is Krista Morris. Krista comments in the chat column, I love her. So Jane, you have a fan. Krista will send donations your way. Miss Sharon Cowdrey from the great state of Tennessee asks, what empirically in that Cleveland area, I saw some of your results. I have them on some slides, but what can you tell us about the percentage in growth within the pocket that you focused on? Or is there empirical data that demonstrates there has been actual growth?
Yeah, there has been. We have one dealer who's kind of struggled, but they're still not turned off. They're full gun engaged, and they've kind of struggled to get the kind of growth that we've seen in other places. But yeah, there's been growth. The range, I heard Bob Taylor and Randy, and I've heard so many numbers, but a good estimate is a range between 6 and 10%, in growth through last December. But I have seen the numbers and I'm keeping track now. Like I said, the store that I was in last week went from 83 to 97%. So to me, that's according to the report, that's great growth. Now, in the back of my mind, I wonder, is it coming at the expense of another dealer, perhaps? I don't know. So, but they're rocking and rolling and doing it. But the really neat thing, again, for those people who haven't been in it, that I didn't stress enough, is the really cool thing about this is because the material or the report comes out every month, you can make a slight tweak or a big tweak. And within 30 to 60 days now, for the first time ever, probably, that dealership is going to see the results. As an example, we had dealership who had one window pricing, no haggling, our price is on the window. And he decided to change his philosophy. They decided they were going to try it. And that was in October. So that was 2 months after we had started, 3 months after we had started Drive Growth. So October 1st, they started going with, back to the old haggle, in a sense, philosophy. All of a sudden in November, we saw their business jump. And Randy Berlin, and the dealer, was kind of saying he was kind of disappointed in a way. I mean, not about the numbers, but that here they thought they were being more ethical, more upfront, more transparent. And Randy Berlin's comment to the dealer was, well, they weren't rewarding you for your honesty and transparency. But the really cool thing was he saw the results within 30 days of changing his philosophy, which was big. When you change a pricing strategy, that's a huge move. And so now all of a sudden he had a tangible, result that he could say, okay, this is the way we need to go. For those dealers who have other dealerships, this boils over or rolls over to them exponentially, because he has a Kia dealership, he has a Buick dealership. So do you think he stayed with one window pricing for those two dealerships? No. So that's the really neat thing and the benefit that they're getting from this. And like I said, right now, because it's free, it's almost all of our dealers said if they had to pay for it, they would have. Which wasn't probably good for Urban Science to hear. So.
Yeah. Interesting. How about other questions popping up? I mentioned if you want to use the chat function. I hope you can hear me coherently. I'm doing my best here. I'm wondering if all that stuff I had up was affecting my audio. Hey, Jane, what you triggered a couple of thoughts. So we did a dry run today. We did a few of them, and one of the questions asked was to Steve's point, getting bogged down. Have you had that experience on the inventory piece with frustration, pushback on the distribution issues, all those kinds of things? Was there times when we went a little too deep into that area or got sidebarred a little too much? Yeah. How about that? Tell us your experience.
Yeah, I mean that happens, but I mean we're not involved in that discussion at all. That's between the zone manager if he's there, the DSM, and the dealer, and the sales manager, whoever's there. Obviously I'm privy to it, but that's not my role at all to engage in that, because I don't know anything about the consensus and who's getting extras and things like that. So I'm kind of glad that I'm out of that loop while I'm in the meeting, in a sense, but yeah, it's been bogged down, and sometimes it's been heated because not only are you talking about inventory, but you're asking them, usually in every case, dealers are going to have to almost increase their inventory to get to their expected number or to become, drive growth effective. So with doing that, you're asking them to carry more inventory than they've been used to carrying. And they're so stuck on that 30, 60, 90 day, supply. And it doesn't involve 30, 60, 90 day supply. It involves what other dealerships that are 100% effective are stocking to get the sales and to be effective. And that fluctuates with, as Brian will point out, my zone manager, that'll fluctuate with the seasons, that'll fluctuate with GM's manufacturing ability. But you see a whole year of, what the necessary inventory is to be effective. And most dealers were off by at least 2 units per sale. So in other words, if they were expected, if the benchmark dealer had 5 Equinoxes for everyone they wanted to sell in stock, our dealerships were running like 2.5 to 3. So they were behind on everything and had to get caught up. So for us, it was a big inventory jump and curve to get up to where they needed to be. But the good news is we're not seeing those valleys now where they get into the valley of death there because they can't work themselves out. They have nothing to sell, so they can't turn and earn, to get back out of the situation they're in. So we haven't seen that for a while with the pilot dealers, which is good news because we had one who was just, that was his pattern, sell, wait until we get inventory back in, resell, wait till we sell, So he was up and down as far as on the benchmark chart, and he's finally come out of that model or business plan.
Cool. Did you, we have a few more minutes. We intended to go an hour, so I hope you're okay, Jane. I know we're getting close to cocktail hour here. Playbook, that is, in terms of solutions for action plans, perhaps most likely repeat customers that have defected. Did you find that getting them in the rhythm of proactively developing outbound campaigns was an effective solution to a problem that you identified?
Yeah, I mean, that became, and that shows in their marketing and advertising. So when you start looking at the S4, pay close attention to those advertising dollars and how much they're spending versus everyone else. A really neat thing that I learned last week too that I did not know before, maybe a couple weeks ago. So I missed that somewhere in the 6 months that I was sitting through the Drive Growth meetings. But I did not know that those advertising dollars that they showed on the S4 were adjusted for the store size. So if you have a dealership that does 50% of the business of another dealership, their advertising dollars are adjusted accordingly. So that was a piece of information I didn't have. So in case you would have, like, for instance, 2 stores that are owned by the same owner, but one does double the business of the other, he's going to say, well, my advertising budget's da-da-da. Well, they've adjusted the advertising dollars based on the store volume, so you don't have to have those discussions. So that was something I learned. But to that point, the advertising dollars, if they're really low, Randy always pointed them back to what are they doing, because almost always they're spending most of their money in the digital space now. So he would always point them back to what they're doing in the more traditional spaces like radio, TV, advertising, perhaps CSSR, Epsilon mailers, things like that. Maybe even newspaper, depending on the demographic in the town, So with that, I'm one of the dealers, in fact, the dealer that we were at 2 weeks ago, who is now 97.6% effective, has still to this day not pulled a playbook list and done anything with it. Even though we've been trying to engage him to get something rolling, to do something with it. So that's an ongoing battle for me, but yes, and that's the time that you would bring it up is hopefully your DMS will ask those questions. If not, that'd be appropriate for you to ask, what are you doing in the non-traditional space? If they're not meeting or if they're not close to what the benchmark dealer is doing in the advertising world.
Really good, Jane. Thanks. Last call. Anybody else? Questions for Jane? It's a great opportunity. If something's on your mind, again, use the chat function if you're shy. Okay. Well, I guess that's it then. Miss Jane, I want to thank you so much. Everybody, let's give her a big round of applause there. You're being applauded around the country, Miss Butorik. You're awesome, Jane. I appreciate it. I know I've called on you a lot.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah, you're wonderful. There you go. Unmute everybody. Let's go.
Yay,
Unmute,
thank you, Jane.
unmute. Let's go. There you go. Big time. There you go. Let's get the chaos. Let's hear those dogs barking. Yeah.
you.
Standing ovation. Alan Farris, standing ovation. And Chris, as you doing? So, hey, see that? You even got the
thing
canine
the
crowd. It's all good. But Jane, seriously, your experience is invaluable. We appreciate it. We're all fighting this fight together, and want to wish all of you a safe weekend. Enjoy, and get some rest, and come back and ready to fight again on Monday. Thank you, and God bless all of you. Take care.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks,
Thank you.
Jane.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Jane. Thank you.